This is IAQ Radio, Indoor Air Quality Radio, the voice of the indoor air quality industry, with your hosts, Radio Joe Hughes and the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick. And now, Radio Joe Hughes.
Hey, and welcome to Radio Plus. It's episode 743. This week, we welcome Chris Laszcz-Davis, Chelsea Earhart, Larry Sloan, and Dr. Albert Tien to talk about global worker health and the new global pathway for the CIH Accreditation. Before we get started, let's thank our sponsors. They're the reason we can continue doing the show. IAQ Radio Association sponsors are AIHA, the American Industrial Hygiene Association at AIHA.org. IICRC, the Institute for Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration Certification at IICRC.org. The Restoration Industry Association, RIA, at restorationindustry.org. The Environmental Information Association, EIA, at EIA-USA.org. Actionable Insights at getinsights.org. IAQ Radio industry sponsors are Particles Plus at particlesplus.com. BioPlanet at byoplanet.com.
And now you can win a cool prize. It's time for the IAQ Radio Trivia question. Be the first to correctly answer. Simply email your answer to czlotnick at cs.com. Or if listening live, just text your answer from your computer. And now, here's the Z-Man.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry to report that no one identified Joseph Aston as the inventor of first true artificial cement, which he did in 1824. Here's today's IAQ Radio trivia question. In what year was the first certified industrial hygiene examination administered? Back to you, Joe.
Okay, so today we've got Dr. Albert Tien. He's the managing partner for T2T Sustainability, also the president and one of the founding members of Workplace Health Without Borders. Larry Sloan, who's the CEO of the American Industrial Hygiene Association. Chris Laszcz-Davis, who is the founder and president of the Environmental Quality Organization, and also the co-chair of the Global Occupational Hygiene Training Association. And Chelsea Earhart, the executive director of the Board for Global EHS Credentialing. I think I got everybody here. We got it. We're all lined up. And Larry, I want to start with you. We were asked to, put together a show on the global health place or global workplace and global health, but also on the program that AIHA and the other groups are working together on to kind of spread the ability of people to consult, I guess, on global health issues, worker health and safety. Tell us a little more about the program, Larry.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it very much, Joe. We really spend a lot of time paying it forward as an organization, as you know. We're the largest organization that's a member of AIHA, which is the federation of some 40 national occupational environmental health and safety organizations around the world. And so, we have a variety of programs that we've been sponsoring. We have a micro grants program that awards grants to training and education programs in emerging economies. We have ambassadors that are designated to specific countries that basically find opportunities where we can provide knowledge and skill training to practitioners in those countries, as well as recruit practitioners to become AIHA members. We offer discounted membership dues and discounts on selected education to practitioners in emerging economies. During the AIHA conference in Dublin, Ireland this past summer, Chris and I were on a shuttle bus to one of the events, and we were talking about how we could add value to those that go through the OHTA training but want to pursue their CIH. And as some of you on the call know, we offer an online asynchronous CIH prep class, which we license. And so we worked with the licensure to arrange for a discount price to those students that successfully go through the OHTA course and earn their I certificate. And the price is discounted at 50% off the list price. for those that want to take their knowledge training a step further and pursue their CIH. So this is yet another way for AIHA to give back and to help reduce the financial burdens for those that want to pursue the CIH credential.
All right, let's start with OHTA, the Occupational Hygiene Training Association. I don't want the acronym police to come after me here, so I'm gonna try and spell it out the best I can. And Chris, let me ask you if you would to tell her. I was not familiar with OHTA until we set up this this call and this show. Can you tell our audience a little bit about OHTA and what they do and how they were founded? We still have Chris?
Chris is still here, but her voice was gone.
Oh, okay.
All right. No, I'd be real happy to. The Occupational Hygiene Training Association is a not-for-profit organization with a mission to provide consistent quality training on the core aspects of occupational hygiene, known as industrial hygiene in the United States, and its related health and safety topics. We're a global organization with approved trainers in both underserved and developed countries. So why was this formed? Occupational injuries and illnesses continue to be a widespread international problem. Data from Lloyd and Gallup in 2019 indicated that there are 340 million occupational accidents and 160 million work-related illnesses each year. And a significant contributor to this problem is the lack of adequately trained occupational hygienists to recognize, evaluate, and control workplace hazards. So based on this pressing need, OHTA was officially constituted in 2009 as an international training program and qualifications framework within IOHA, the International Occupational Hygiene Association, which Larry made a reference to, which is a consortium of 44 international OH professional organizations. Now OHTA is a global team of volunteers. We're all volunteers, approved trainers, and students of all ages and backgrounds who are interested in protecting the health and safety of workers from hazards in their jobs. Our goals are pretty straightforward. The number one priority of OHTA is to make low-cost, world-class courses available to OH practitioners and students in underserved areas, but we also have OHTA trainers in developed countries. And our ultimate goal is to increase the number and competency of occupational hygienists throughout the world. And what do we offer actually in terms of deliverables? Training materials, which are developed and maintained by OHTA volunteer teams who are internationally recognized experts in their subject area. Student manuals are downloaded for free once you create an account on the website. Training courses, extensive training materials are available from OHTA-approved trainers who are typically OH consultants through the National OH Associations, 44, which we have presently. And as Larry mentioned, as part of our qualifications framework, OHTA offers an ICERT OHTA certificate in occupational hygiene to those students who have successfully completed exams for 6 of the OHTA 500 series courses. Exams are multiple choice open book. And the way that this fits with BGC is that as you sit for the CIH exam, you've got to have gone through some core OH training. These courses qualify for that OH training. That's the beauty of it. And if I might, if you'll indulge me, I've got just a few slides I'd like to share. So Grayson?
Okay.
Our mantra is pretty straightforward. We improve worker health one course at a time. Next slide, please. Basically, the global challenge, and I've already spoken to the numbers here. We can move on to the next one, please. Now, what are our course offerings? It looks pretty simple, but they're very, very robust. We've got awareness level courses like a health and safety awareness course, which is about a half a day interactive course that was developed with an outside contractor. We've got a half-day silica hazard awareness course that was developed when this became of international prominence. We've got OHTA 201, very basic principles in OH. These courses are a week long, And the training materials that support it are very, very extensive. These are given by what we call approved training providers. There's an application process and a vetting process for approved trainers. Intermediate level courses, there are a series of them. These for anybody in occupational hygiene are germane to what we do. And then we've begun to develop specialist courses in mining, which we're going to be launching this month, oil and gas, and we're actually working on a biopharma module right now as we speak. Next slide, please. To Larry's point, we've got 44. We're not a member organization per se. We have MOUs with the 44 member professional associations throughout the world, and that's how we get the work done. Next slide, please. Impact. Just a couple of things about impact. We've actually got, I think the number now is 44 member associations with whom we have an MOU. The countries highlighted in dark blue are home to an OHTA member association. Next slide, please. In terms of impact, what you saw was member associations, but the impact is very, very extensive. I wonder if you could move through the slide. There's some statistics in the bottom in that cell there, Grayson. Impact, as we've been able to ascertain, over 50 countries, 2,000 courses, over 15,000 exam candidates. And when we talk impact, we're talking at least 50,000 stakeholders, minimally over a period of 10, 12 years. Next slide. Just the trending of the courses that have been taken and recognized globally as quality courses that will help make a difference in any country in which they're given. Next slide, please. And finally, I forgot to share, IO had its international conference in Dublin, at which several of us presented. And I'm very pleased to share that we received the 2024 AIHA Collaboration Award in honor of OHTA's profound commitment to improving worker health and of promoting occupational hygiene on a global scale. So we provide the tools oftentimes for the extensive work that is done by the other global organizations within our profession. And with that, thank you.
Very interesting, Chris. This is all new to me. I enjoy learning about this worldwide effort. Let's go to Dr. Tien. Tell us a little bit, if you would, about your organization. This is going to be now Workplace Health Without Borders International.
Nope, we're talking about Workplace Health Without Borders US.
US, okay.
Yes.
Part of the international, though.
Yes, we're a not-for-profit 501c organization incorporated in the state of Michigan. We started out in September of 2015. The reason why we formed our nonprofit in Michigan and also in Ann Arbor was to be close to the University of Michigan. And the first exposure limits were developed by Dr. Warren Cook. And so there's some history of why we did that. And our mission was to raise awareness for the need of effective control of workplace hazards and risks for our own underserved workers and communities, as well as in developing countries. We provide coordination, oversight for projects and training initiated by WHWB-US, and we also have access to different resources for both national and international projects, which may be more accessible by nonprofits incorporated here in the United States. And how we got involved in this project is I hold a couple of hats like every one of us do. I'm on the advisory committee of the OHTA. And so we heard about what was going on with the AIHA conference and the need to try to provide a avenue for students wanting to move on, because when you ask the students, what do you want? What do you want to do with this iCert OHTA? And the majority of them said that we'd like to go the CIH route. So the CIH route is more recognized globally than some of the other industrial hygiene occupational certificates. So we all talked, Chris and I were talking about what we could do to move this along. And that's how, talking with Larry, also talking with BGC, we got together to form this pretty much a consortium on how to move things forward. WHWB-US's role is to then assign mentors to the students that have completed the basic requirements for iCert OHTA and also have 5 years of work experience. And this is so we could get a more mature individual that would be ready to commit some time to the studies. So Larry was very gracious and went to their provider and discussed about, could we reduce the costs of this CIH review material? And he went to bat and bam, he snapped his fingers and he was able to have everything reduced by 50%, which still, could be a financial barrier for people in developing countries. That's why WHWB-US and also OHTA for qualified individuals that have need will raise the money to fund either part of that costs for the training materials or review materials or all of it. And that also goes with the CIH examination fee. We will fund all of it or part of it, depending upon need of the individual. And we go to our members to find mentors that will help the students go through the material to make sure that they understand what it takes to sit for the CIH exam.
And they don't necessarily have to have a degree in the sciences now, is that?
They do. They have to have minimally a bachelor's degree in the sciences or engineering.
Okay. And so Chris, your group provides like the training, and then the other group provides kind of the mentorship, the field work, I guess. Am I getting that right?
Well, let me just tweak that a little bit. A candidate who has an iCert OHTA, and I'll tell you, people outside of the United States and Canada are thrilled that this is even a possibility. And I'm excited because it's 4 organizations coming together collaboratively. And I mean, it was beauty to have it come together. So when somebody who's got an iCert OHTA raises his or her hand and says, I'm interested in the CIH, they get vetted through our OHTA secretariat. So got to make sure we've got the prerequisites, the college degree, they've gone through the iCert OHTA, passed the exam. So the vetting process starts with us. Then we move them over to AIHA. They've got a contact who then says, you're eligible for the CIH exam at half price. There is, as Albert just mentioned, for those who can't afford it, there is an application form that can be completed so that if somebody can't pay for it, we'll make sure they get through it. Once they take the CIH exam, and in fact, in parallel, we contact Albert, WHWB-US, and they will assign a mentor to carry them. They do a lot of the heavy lifting from the time they're screened and said, okay, and announced as being an eligible candidate. WHWB-US does the heavy lifting in terms of mentoring and even help them prepare them to sit for the CIH exam. And then when it comes to the CIH exam itself, the prerequisites and all, that falls into Chelsea's court. So, I mean, it's a continuum process.
Okay, now let's roll over to Chelsea. Chelsea Earhart, I want to introduce you to our audience first, and then you're the executive director for the Board for Global EHS Environmental Health and Safety Credentialing, which we'll call BGC. All right. And I want you, if you would, tell our audience a little, because I think most of our audience is familiar with the old American Board of Industrial Hygiene, and I think they've kind of rolled into now the global board is, but I don't want to speak for you.
Yes. So I didn't want to give away the answer to the trivia question down below, but the ABIH, the American Board of Industrial Hygiene, was founded in 1960. So that kind of gives a little clue. But I see someone already got the answer correct. So good job,
Yes.
Bob. So it was founded in 1960, and our first exam was given, I think, in 1963. And it was specifically just for industrial hygiene at the time. So that was the first and only credential that the ABIH, which is now BGC, offered for many, many years. However, over time, we started offering additional credentials that weren't just industrial hygiene related, but other areas of occupational health and safety. And so in 2019, ABIH changed our name. To accomplish two goals. We changed to the Board for Global EHS Credentialing. One, to make a more global presence, because we do have diplomates in over 37 countries. So we wanted to take out the American focus and make it a more global organization, as well as reflect the change from not just focusing on industrial hygiene, but other areas of health and occupational health and safety. So environmental health and safety. So that happened in about 2019. So you'll hear a lot of people still refer to us as ABIH, but BGC and ABIH, same organization. We just have changed our name, and we know that old habits die hard. So we're still trying to make sure that people know that we are ABIH, but we're now BGC. And currently we offer 7 credentials. We have 2 new ones on the way, which I know we'll talk about here in just a few minutes, but we do offer more than just industrial hygiene. But CIH was really our very first credential. It's the one, we call it our flagship, our gold standard. It's the one where we have the most diplomates. It's obviously the most well-known of the programs and of the credentials, but yeah, so that's really the history of ABIH to BGC. And our mission and vision really is very similar to all the other organizations that are on this call. It's really to make the world a better place by offering rigorous, valid credentials to help protect the safety of our public and our constituents. So that's really our goal.
Let me ask this: either
Sure.
Chelsea or Larry, or one of you will know, how many CIHs are there?
So we
Ballpark.
have. Oh, go ahead, Larry. Were you going to say something? I didn't mean to.
No, God, that's a good question for you.
Yeah, it is. So we have credentialed just over 13,000 CIHs, and that's since 1963. So we have over 13,000 now. We've had people retire and things like that, move on from the profession. So I think active now we're just over 7,000, maybe close to 8.
And is that worldwide or just in the United States?
Worldwide. So like I mentioned, we do have diplomates in 37 countries. Our biggest focus, or our biggest population, is in North America, so Canada, US. But also we have a very large presence in Asia. But one of the goals of BGC really is to increase our global footprint. And that's something that we've been working on, and it's one of our goals in the forefront, which is why we love partnering with these types of programs to see what we can do to bring the CIH to some areas of the world that maybe can't afford it, or it's a little less well known.
Okay, so it's probably the United States, maybe Canada. I don't know. Australia has a little different program though, don't they?
That's a good question. I think they do. Yeah, but we do have some CIHs there as well, but they do some areas do have their own credentials, or they may use a different type of credential. But we do have ANSI accreditation for the CIH program, which is a worldwide accrediting body, and it's something that's very familiar to those in this industry, of course. So and that helps us get that global reach, and we really have taken all the focus out of just US or North American focused laws, regulations. So when you take the exam, you're not going to see questions about things that are just specific to US regulations or laws or practice. So we really have made a focus to make this a worldwide global exam. So someone taking it in another part of the world would still, be able to answer those questions and not have to worry about specific laws in different regions.
Now, what about Europe? Are there a lot of CIHs in Europe, or are there different programs there?
There are some different programs there as well. It's an area we're really trying to focus on growing as well, because there are lots of EHS based great organizations in Europe, and we've recently become an associate member of INSPO, which is an international health and safety organization to really help promote the profession in all areas of the world, not just Europe. But it's one of our goals. Again, it's Asia seems to be our biggest region outside of North America, but we're slowly making inroads and really trying to just get the word out about the credentialing process and making sure that we're advocating just not only to people who might sit for the exam, but we want to make sure that employers know that when they hire someone with a credential, a BGC credential or any credential really, that they're hiring someone who has a certain set of knowledge, skills, and abilities that they can count on, and really helps make a stronger candidate, an employee as well. And some areas of the world, including the US and some other areas, we want to make sure that if possible, if there are regulations or statutes or laws that they're putting in place, we want to make sure that they include an accredited credential in some of these areas. So we're working with groups like INSPO to help really promote that practice as well.
You mentioned Asia a few times, but I'm wondering is there any specific, like Vietnam? Is it China? Is it Malaysia? Is it all of Asia? Where do you see the most interest?
It seems to be China, I think, is the biggest country. Let's see, I had it just pulled up here a second ago. We have a huge contingent in China. And let's see, we also
What about
have
India?
India, I believe, was on the list. I don't know that it's in the top 10, but it might be. We do know that we have a lot of interest in China. We do have some issues with, right now, we only offer our exams in English, so that's an issue. So that's something that the board is also looking into, whether or not in the future we may translate exams, but there's a lot of considerations to be had when you start looking at translation costs and all of that, because then you have to think about also the training programs, other training programs offered in other languages and things like that.
And I wonder, Chris, you were with the training side of things, I think. I may have gotten it mixed up, but how do you handle that, the different languages? I mean, that's got to be tough for you.
It's a great question. What I did want to say, and I wonder if I could add a little bit to what
Please
Chelsea
do.
said, since all of our trainers are boots on the ground all over the world, we might have a little different perspective as to where the need is. We're seeing calls for help out of India, Africa, China, and Indonesia. And and the way we connect with the national associations is what allows us to move into their circle of friendship, if you will. If I look at certifications worldwide, of the 44 professional associations within AIHA, and Albert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think there are fewer than 10 countries. No, I think there are 13 now that actually have accreditations that they would consider to be equal to the CIH. So I would in no way denigrate what others are doing. But one of the things that was very, very clear when we were in Dublin at the international conference, when we asked people, if you have the certification and you were going to go on to a professional accreditation, which one would it be? It was the CIH. And I think a lot of that is the fact that it's got an aggregate core of people worldwide with a robust organization that continues to strengthen it, that I think makes a difference. Translations, and I failed to mention this. Because of the reach, we have begun to translate our courses and our exams in different languages. We've got 4 or 5 translations, language translations that we're moving through, and we're able to move through this. We're able to move through this, and we're going through it. So as a country says, we want to take the OHTA courses, but English is a struggle. We work with the National Association to translate, have some of their members vet it for accuracy. The exams are clearly given in the language. And what we're finding is the level of uptake and competency is just increasing logarithmically. So there are fairly inexpensive ways to do this, but it takes a lot of boots on the ground and connecting with each country. But we're making it happen.
Fantastic. All right, we're going to stop here and thank our sponsors for halftime. We'll be right back with the second half of our show. Very interesting. Dr. Tien, we've got Larry Sloan, we got Chris Davis, we've got Chelsea Earhart. It's all fun. All right. Our association sponsors are AIHA, Healthy Workplaces, a Healthier World, AIHA.org. The Environmental Information Association, EIA's multidisciplinary membership collects, generates, and disseminates information concerning environmental and occupational health hazards in the built environment at EIA-USA.org. The IICRC, a nonprofit standards development and certifying body for the cleaning and restoration industry, IICRC.org. The Restoration Industry Association, the oldest and largest nonprofit professional trade association dedicated to providing leadership and promoting best practices through advocacy, standards, and professional qualifications for the restoration industry at restorationindustry.org. Actionable insights, no more mistakes, no more missed line items in your Xactimate estimates at getinsights.org. Industry sponsors are Particles Plus, feature-rich particle counters and air quality instrumentation. Count on us, particlesplus.com. BioPlanet at byoplanet.com, improving human, animal, and environmental health with electrostatic spray technology and advanced chemistries at byoplanet.com. All right, we're back for the second half. I want to start the second half with Larry. Larry, I just want to give you an opportunity to jump in here and kind of summarize or clarify anything that went on in the first half.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think again, the rapidity of this collaboration across the four organizations, it underscores our commitment to the global community of occupational hygienists, right? Those that are coming from emerging economies do not have the resources. They don't have the bandwidth to progress the way those in the United States might. And so literally a kind of an ad hoc conversation that was held at the AIHA conference again in Dublin, Ireland this past June led to this confluence of all four parties coming together so nicely. The online CIH prep class that AIHA licensed back in 2018 was something that was of interest to us because we recognized that as AIHA does more to approach the global community, we felt we needed access to an asynchronous online course, right? And so this CIH prep class that we license is just that. It is 24 hours of presentations, videos, and practice questions, if you will. And there's a separate module for each of BGC's 17 rubrics. Each module has a end of the module quiz before you move on to the next module. And then there's a 180 question CIH practice exam before you actually take the final exam. And then finally, there's an app called Quizlet. And on Quizlet, you get access to over 400 flashcards to help you with studying for the CIH exam. So it's a really nice, robust online program, and you have a good 6 months to complete it from start to finish. And those that have completed it have done very well on the CIH exam. I don't have the actual statistics in terms of the pass rate, but I would say that a vast majority of those students that have gone through this online CIH prep class have passed the CIH exam the very first time.
Interesting. Chelsea, you're shaking your head there. Do you have a little to add to that?
Well, we obviously can't, since we are the certification body, we can't offer any prep courses or endorse any particular prep courses. But studies do show, though, in certification in general, that people who participate in study groups or do additional study materials like a prep class or practice test questions do tend to do better on exams. So,
all right, I've got and somebody probably said this, but sometimes when we get old, things kind of go by us here. IOHA. What does that one stand for? And it sounds like that's a very important international conference that I'm not that familiar with. Who wants to give me a little more detail on that?
Well, I'll step
Larry?
up real quick. Yeah, so
ahead.
IOHA is the International Occupational Hygiene Association. And as Chris mentioned earlier, it's 44 national associations, which includes AIHA, ACGIH, BGC, and others from some all across the world, all the continents, except for Antarctica. And every 3 years, AIHA hosts a conference. This year's conference was in Dublin, Ireland. It moves around the world. AIHA hosted the conference here in Washington, D.C. in 2018. This year's conference was fantastic. Chris and I were there, over 600 attendees, 4 days of programming with an expo, and then there were professional development courses in the days before the conference began.
Interesting. Okay. Now, I've got a great, actually, I think, Dawn, you kind of anticipated my next question here. So I'm going to ask Dr. Tien, if you could maybe describe some of the current projects the WPWB is working on.
Okay. WB, Workplace Borders, let's see, I got me, WHWB-US.
Okay.
We're working on a lot of different projects. We've got a project right now. Our past president, Tien Nguyen, is a AIHA ambassador to Vietnam, and he's been very instrumental in working in Vietnam to develop the relationship between AIHA and also OHTA and also our organization. He helped to found, together with some locals, the Vietnam Industrial Hygiene Association. And he's been working to transfer a lot of the training materials and helping to set up various curriculums in Vietnam at various universities. He also helped set up a bunch of conferences in Vietnam for occupational health issues. So that's how I got brought into Vietnam, teaching one of the OHTA courses. And when I looked at the material and some of the benefits of this type of training, I got involved and came on to OHTA and one of their working groups to try to continuously improve the material, especially where there's language issues, because that was some of the things that we saw, because often we were basically having an English exam as opposed to an examination on the material. But the students have been fantastic, and we're also working with Walida Soto University in Ethiopia. We're starting out a training program over there to build a basic health and safety course for all instructors and workers, as well as every single student, because that may be the only health and safety training they ever have before they go out into the workforce. We've had some issues with getting it off the ground due to local conflicts. There's still some guerrilla war activity in the different provinces, so that the stability over there isn't very good. Also, the bandwidth for internet is not always stable. So a lot of the online stuff that we've offered to them, we've had to bring members of their staff to the US and just do a conference with them, showing them what's available, showing them the needs, and getting the administration on board. So that's another project we've been working on. We've also been involved with the collaborative online, COIL, collaborative online, I guess, internet-based learning program, where different universities are working together with a shared curriculum where you have instructors online, but the students then collaborate on projects together. And I have to say that this was thanks due to our first president, Mary O'Reilly, and also Tien Nguyen. They got together and developed this. This COIL program has also spread also with SUNY and also one of the universities in Vietnam. So this is a nice collaborative project that we've all been working working on together.
And then there's a group going over from AIHA, I believe, Larry, going to Vietnam for.
Yeah, so yeah, we were approached by the Cultural Visa Organization here in DC about 3 months ago with the opportunity to form a delegation that was led by AIHA President Nicole Greason. And this thing came together rather quickly. We had about 15 members that were a part of this delegation that went to Vietnam at the end of October. But what was great about this is that when we heard about the opportunity, we were able to schedule it in tandem with a very important Vietnam National Conference. I had been approached by Tien back in the summer about virtually speaking to this audience at this meeting at the end of October. When we found out about the delegation, we approached Tien and we said, we got something better for you. Nicole can actually deliver a keynote address in person. And so she gave a technical talk and she also gave an AIHA national update in person at this conference. And then there were other activities within Vietnam that ensued following the meeting. So it really worked out very well.
That's, it's fascinating when you look at what's going on around the world with, I mean, some of the statistics that Chris presented earlier were just kind of disappointing in a way. I mean, Chris, let's get you back on here for a moment. I mean, all those different injuries and illnesses and how many people need these programs, and then you've got to deal with the political side of things, and you got to deal with language differences and so on. Chris, tell us a little more about maybe a successful project for your group, something that you consider to be that would kind of illustrate a little better for what your group does.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, what we provide are the training materials, resources, and the system for quality instructors to deliver these courses worldwide. Years ago, the impact was fairly local in places like the UK and the US. But if I were to define the metric for success within the OHTA umbrella, it would be expansion. So how many people have had the benefit of OEHS training today that they would not have had they not gone through the OHTA training courses? And I don't think we can put a number on that. But there are people today who have become change agents in parts of the world who didn't even know industrial hygiene or safety or the corollary environmental issues without the OHTA training materials. So that's the impact we have. And some of the metrics I've shared speak to that. So if I were to look at our biggest deliverable for all these other global organizations, we work with the professional associations. So we've got boots on the ground in many parts of the world, but we also provide the resources for people to use so they can make a difference wherever they're doing work, whether it's training, strategic planning, well water, whatever. So, I mean, that's how I would define it very simply.
Where would be the request for training that you got that was kind of the most surprising to you? Maybe a country you never thought of would be looking for this. Is that something that you can tell us?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for a long time, we were getting requests in Australia, New Zealand, certainly the US, Canada, but we actually did a relaunch of all of our courses. We updated them. We have a new website. We went online. Our exams are all online, and the response time from the day that the student takes the exam to the time they get the test results is within 2 weeks. So, I mean, there's a lot of media feedback and a lot of mentoring that goes on. So now we're getting requests from Turkey, from Indonesia, from parts of Africa, that never knocked on our door before, and that's pretty exciting. So and we have representatives who go to the IOHA conferences. We're slowly working with all 44 national associations, and when we deliver our pitches to what we can do for them, we're having them say, we'd like to hold those OHTA courses here. Many of them can be given online, and yes, OHTA can translate this for you as well. So we're seeing impact and requests from emerging parts of the world that we've never experienced before. And that's real exciting.
Very interesting. Cliff, let me turn it over to you.
Yeah, just one follow-up question. With all this international training, who grades the exams? And how do you maintain grading integrity and certification?
So for go ahead, Chris. Sorry, I'll speak about the certification after you.
Well, there are two different processes. I mean, OHTA has its own set of exams, but the CIH exam, the professional qualification, is a whole different Cadillac, if you will. If I just talk about the OHTA, the courses that we offer, and the exams and the translations, a lot of this was developed, so it's all online. The exam questions were developed by professionals, vetted by other professionals, and vetted for the appropriateness within a country and its culture as well. So, I mean, this is all online, but it is developed so that by the time the course is being delivered and the exam being delivered, it can be all done online, real time.
And there are better ways now for verifying that someone online took the exam and passed the exam. Can you talk about that just a bit?
Well, it's and I can't tell you the behind the scenes software that we use, but we actually explored a number of venues and platforms that we'd use today. Our courses are given online by approved training providers. Many of them actually still give them in person. They will go to an Indonesian conference and they'll have a week-long series of courses that are available. So that's all one-on-one in a class of 30 students. There are practicals that are given, case studies that are shared. What we're finding online is that the approved training provider can still do it online with the student, but our students are calling for more practicals and case studies. So there might be a pause in the online and then that taken offline so that they have the student set up a sampling train, talk through a case study so that there is a hands-on practical learning that accompanies the what I would call straight presentation and straight academic training.
And Dr. Tien, you want to add anything to that?
Well, the grading of these exams are online. So
yeah.
You've got the answer forms, and so this is why it's able to be done very quickly. It's automated, and our students for OHTA, they get their results very quickly. I mean, in weeks, and in some other organizations, it may be months.
Yeah, absolutely. Chelsea, I know you wanted to add a little something to that part of the discussion.
Yes, thank you. So the certification exam is a different process, obviously, than the training programs. But we partner with Pearson VUE. That's our test delivery provider. And so we have testing centers all over the world. They have probably the most international presence of any of the vendors that offer examinations. But we also offer the ability to test. Currently, you can take the CIH exam or any of our other credentials by secure remote proctor. So you could do it in your home office or your office. As long as it's secure, you'll have a proctor on the other end of the computer watching you take your exam. You show around, make sure you don't have any unauthorized materials and that sort of thing. So we do offer those options for taking these credentialing exams. And those questions go through a very rigorous process. We use psychometricians and all best practices in terms of psychometrics, and so that every question before it ends up as a scored item on an exam goes through a pre-test process where we gather statistics. We have a certain number of unscored items that are mixed in on the exam. You don't know which ones are scored and which ones aren't, just so we can gather those statistics. All questions are reviewed multiple times by a committee of panel of experts. And we try to get as broad of a panel as possible and make sure that there's no bias in the questions related to area of the world or anything of that nature. So before a question ever even ends up on an exam, it goes through a very rigorous statistical analysis to make sure that that question is a valid question before it becomes a scored item. We also Oh, sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say it is possible to take that exam then without going to a testing center. It's become more and more popular, I guess.
Correct. And they have some very secure and rigorous security measures. So some people are more comfortable taking it in their home, and some people prefer the testing center. I've actually done both just to test it out and see what it's like. So it's an interesting process. That really remote proctoring really became a necessity during COVID.
Yeah.
It was something that had started in the testing world and certification world, but really became a necessity during COVID. And we found that people do really like those that option. So we have allowed it to continue. I want to mention that in order to expand even just the board's diversity and international reach, we have our very first non-North American board member this year. She's actually based in Nigeria. So we know that there is a need and a want for more CIHs and more credentialed practitioners in this profession, especially on the continent of Africa. So we're excited that we have Cynthia Obuzu. She's very active in Nigeria, especially, but she's our first non-North American board member. So we're really excited about that as well.
Hey, John, did you hear that? We've got one of our audience members is from Nigeria. I noticed he was on here.
Oh, wonderful.
So hopefully you caught that, John. All right, let's go to the roundup there, Grayson. All right. So today I want to make note of a couple answers. Chelsea put in here the most CIHs by country, the United States and Territories, Canada, then China third, Singapore, India, Australia, South Korea, Malaysia, Taiwan, Saudi Arabia. So those are in order. Thank you, Chelsea. Very
You're
much
welcome.
appreciated. And Larry had a follow-up for you, Chelsea. How many years between CIH question review evaluation cycles?
So we refresh the exams every year. So we have brand new exam forms every year, but we also go through the job analysis process every 5 years. And we're actually about to start that. I think it's either end of 2025, early 2026, where we look at the entire profession and redo the exam blueprint. So that's a psychometric process that takes place, and standard is 5 to 7 years. And we typically do ours, especially for CIH, every 5 years. So we start the whole process over, look at the profession, we send out surveys to see what CIHs are doing in their jobs on a daily basis and what knowledge, skills, and abilities you need to become a CIH. So that process happens every 5 years, and that's when the exam blueprint gets updated. But we do refresh the exam forms every year so that there are new questions. And we're constantly, after every administration, we're evaluating statistics to make sure nothing has changed statistically. Because if we notice a drop in statistics or an increase in statistics, we will ask our experts why. Did something change? Did this practice change? So we're constantly evaluating each individual question, as well as refreshing the exam forms and getting new questions into the pool to make sure that we're always making sure that our exams stay valid, reliable.
A lot of work. All right.
A lot of work. Yeah, we're always looking for volunteers. So if anybody likes to write questions, let me know.
All right. Let's go around the horn and get final thoughts. I want to start with Dr. Tien. One of the things I noticed on the website was that you were able to get some kind of money from NIOSH for the group. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, we've gotten funding from various different sources, but I think we've gotten money from NIOSH, we've gotten money from AIHA, from the micro grants. We've also gotten funding from the other branches of WHWB, from Australia, UK, Canada. So. And we have gotten quite a lot of money. We've put in also in the past for grants from the ERCs together.
ERC, what's that acronym?
Those are the educational
research centers.
Okay.
And
this is an acronym-filled show here.
It can be. And so we look for all venues for funding to have our organization continue. We're a relatively new organization. We're less than 10 years old, and but we've been out there from the beginning.
What's the one area of the world you wish you would get more buy-in from?
Actually, the U.S.
No kidding.
Yes.
Why do you say that?
Well, because we've got a lot of very strong legislation and rules, but a lot of times you'll have companies not really want to follow them, and a lot of times we get involved helping underserved worker populations here in the U.S. So that could be with warehouse workers or people working in
farm laborers,
landscapers, things like that. Also mom and pop organizations.
That's fascinating. When they were talking about all the overseas, I'm thinking to myself, there's all these pockets of the United States where people were still working like they did 200 years ago, unfortunately. And I'm really happy I asked you that question and you answered the way you did. Thank you. And before we go too, I want to make sure, is there anything we missed that you'd like to add?
For any of us?
Yeah, we're going to go down for all of you here.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Tien. But I appreciate it. And check out that concrete show. That was a good one. I'll send you the link. I will. He's a concrete guy, Cliff.
Oh, okay, cool.
Although actually his wife is the real concrete expert, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's like Don Weeks' family. We know who the real expert is.
Yeah, we do. Hi, Lanchi. I hope you're out there listening. All right, let's go to Larry before we wrap it up. Larry, anything we missed that you'd like to add?
No, not really. I'm just delighted that we were able to, again, pull this partnership together so quickly. And again, I think that the CIH prep, and there's a lot of prep classes that are out there. So we're just talking about the AIHA's asynchronous online course, but there are a lot of other providers that are available, and we're pretty agnostic to the other courses. There are local sections around the country that offer their own versions of CIH prep. And I would encourage anybody, whether they're in the United States or anywhere around the world, to take advantage of the various offerings that are out there to help you prepare and successfully pass the CIH exam.
Thank you, Larry. Always great to have you join us. Chris, before we go, final third, anything we missed, anything you'd like to add?
Actually, I miss sharing one concept, and I don't think any of us really hit on it. I had worked in industry for 25 years, and I found that our biggest change agents in our facilities around the world were not the professionals. It was our plant operators and people in operations who made the change, which means you got to train those folks. That applies here. That model applies here as well. If you look at professionals in IHOH globally, there aren't that many, quite frankly, given the prominent problem and challenges that we have. So it's important that we have training courses for people around the world who are not professionals, but people in the local communities who can take basic concepts and apply them operationally. And that's where courses like OHTA make a difference. Our biggest impact is to train people who can take what they need to know at a basic level and make the impact in their local communities. That's how it starts. So that's my additional thought.
Great thought. Great thought. And Chelsea, before we go, let's give you the final word.
Oh, awesome. I did have just one thing. I know this conversation has been mainly focused on CIH, but we do have 2 new credentials coming in 2025 that are more generalist credentials for people who work in organizations where they maybe have to wear a bunch of different hats. So they do some industrial hygiene, they do some auditing, they do some product safety stewardship. And so those 2 new credentials, there's one especially for brand new to the profession. So it's a certified associate in environmental safety and health, and then a certified professional in environmental safety and health. And that one is a step up. It has more experience required. So those might be good options for those who aren't just focused on industrial hygiene, but do industrial hygiene and a little bit of everything else in their organization. So we saw a real need for that kind of credential because we do realize that some people are wearing multiple hats. And so those are coming in mid-2025. So we'll have more information on our website shortly. So just wanted to mention that as well as our other credentials that we have that focus on environmental health and safety.
It's fascinating. I've been doing this for 18 years and I still learn every week, and there's so many things going on out there that I didn't know were going on. But I can imagine how people that uh, don't do a podcast every week for 700 some weeks, how they feel. It's got to get a little confusing. I want to thank our guests from this week. We had a great show with Chris Laszcz-Davis, Chelsea Earhart, Larry Sloan, and Dr. Albert Tien. Thank you all for joining us, and great work you're doing out there worldwide. We appreciate it. Before we go, I want to make sure we also thank my co-host, the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick, Grayson, Gone Fishing Fisher at the controls. And most importantly, our loyal audience and sponsors will be back. Oh, by the way, next Friday, we got Dr. Joe Spurgeon joining us. We're going to go over some, year-end hot topics in the mold world and indoor air quality world with Dr. Joe. He's always great to have. So please come back and join us next Friday at noon for the next episode of IAQ Radio Plus.
For IAQ Radio, I'm Spike Reel saying thanks for listening.